What if I told you that you've never heard a single sound in your entire life? That everything you call noise, music, voices and sounds never actually reached you? Because the exact moment you perceive something, there's no longer sound. There's only silence, observing echoes. You wake up every day and dive into the world without noticing a disturbing truth. You're not living life. You're watching it. There's a silent witness inside you that never sleeps, never ages, never reacts. It just observes. And throughout your entire existence, you've confused this witness with your thoughts, with your emotions, with your story. But this witness is prior to all of that. It's the empty space where everything happens. It's you before you decided who you would be. Close your eyes for a second and notice. There's a sound around you right now. Maybe a distant hum, the wind, voices, music. But how do you know that sound exists? Because something in you recognizes it. And that something can't be the sound itself, right? Sound can't hear itself. So there's you, and there's the sound, and between the two, there's an abyss of silence. This abyss is more you than anything you've ever done, said, or thought. The ancient Eastern philosophers knew this millennia ago. They didn't call it silence, but pure consciousness, the observer, the true self. In the West, thinkers like Schopenhauer and Kierkegaard touched on this idea when they spoke about the self as something distinct from personality, something prior to the ego. But modern society has taught us exactly the opposite. We were told that we are our thoughts, that we are our achievements, that we are our pains and joys. And so we spend our entire lives trying to silence the silence because it terrifies us. Have you noticed how we can't be at peace with ourselves? We wake up and immediately reach for our phones. We get in the car and turn on the radio. We get home and turn on the TV. It's as if there's a primordial fear of encountering what we really are. Because when all the noise stops, when all the distractions disappear, what remains? You remain, the conscious silence. The naked, raw presence that needs no narrative, needs no justification, needs nothing, and this threatens everything we've built about ourselves. Modern psychology has begun to rediscover this truth through mindfulness meditation and studies on metacognition. Neuroscientists realized there's a difference between the thoughts that arise in the brain and the consciousness that observes them. When you think, "I'm sad," who is perceiving that sadness? It can't be the sadness itself, because then there would be no distance, no observation. There's a you that's always one step back, always watching. And that you is never sad, never anxious, never angry. It simply notices that these things are happening. But here's the question that will change everything. If you are the silence that observes sounds, if you are the consciousness that observes thoughts, then who you really are can never be hurt. Think about it. When someone offends you, what really hurts? The words? No, words are just vibrations in the air. What hurts is the story you tell about those words. It's the wounded identity. It's the character you built that now bleeds. But the silence that observes this pain? It remains untouched. It has always remained untouched. Have you ever wondered who you would be if you had no memory? If you woke up tomorrow without remembering your name, your story, your wounds, your dreams? You would still exist, wouldn't you? Something would still be conscious, and that something is more fundamental than any identity you carry. It's the eternal silence wearing temporary masks. I'm going to tell you something that will sound strange, but pay attention. You've never actually experienced the past. Think about it. All your memories, all your stories, where do they exist? In the present. You're right now remembering, right now telling yourself stories. The past is just a present activity of the mind. And the future, also now. It's anxiety now, it's planning now, it's fear now. Everything is happening in this moment, and in this moment there's only you, the silence, watching the mind's show. But here comes the big question. If this is true, why do we suffer so much? If we are this unshakable consciousness, why does life seem so heavy? The answer is simple and devastating at the same time. Because we forgot. Because we completely identified with the story. It's like going to the movies and forgetting you're watching a film. Suddenly, you are the character. When the hero suffers, you suffer. When the villain attacks, you feel real fear. You forgot that you're sitting in the chair, safe, just watching light projected on a screen. Life is like this. You're sitting in the chair of consciousness, watching the movie called Your Life, but you forgot it's just a movie. So when the character on the screen loses their job, you panic. When the character is rejected, you feel destroyed. When the character ages, you feel terror of death. But who's feeling this? Not consciousness. It remains calm, silent, observing. It's the imaginary character that suffers. If this idea has already resonated with you, imagine what comes next. Subscribe so you don't miss this journey, because what's coming will shake the foundations of what you believe to be real. Here's the great secret that spiritual traditions try to teach us in different ways. You cannot improve silence. It's already perfect. All your suffering comes from trying to improve, fix, correct something that was never broken. You spend your life trying to become someone better, more complete, happier, but you're already complete. Silence needs nothing. It's the mind that creates the sensation of incompleteness, because that's its job. Create problems and then seek solutions. It's an infinite loop that only ends when you realize there was never a real problem. Think about small children. They live in this state naturally. A 2-year-old doesn't think, I'm happy or I'm sad. They simply are. Happiness happens, sadness happens. Everything flows through them like clouds crossing the sky. But as we grow up, we begin to identify with the clouds and forget that we are the sky. We think we are the storm, when in reality we are the infinite space where storms come and go. Existentialist philosophy spoke about this differently. Sartre said that existence precedes essence. You exist first, and only then create meaning. But he didn't go deep enough, because before existence itself, there's consciousness. There's the silence observing existence emerge, and this silence isn't afraid of emptiness, because it is the emptiness. The fertile void, pregnant with infinite possibilities. You want to know how to apply this in practice? How to use this knowledge to live better? Here's the key. Stop trying to solve your life and start observing it. When anxiety comes, don't fight it. Observe it as you would observe clouds. Look, anxiety is appearing. It's not I am anxious, because who is this I that's perceiving the anxiety? This I cannot be the anxiety itself. So you create distance. And in that distance there's freedom. When someone criticizes you, instead of immediately defending your character, stop, breathe, observe the reaction arising. Interesting. There's anger appearing. There's a desire to counterattack. Simply observing this already deactivates 80% of the suffering. Why? Because suffering needs your total identification to survive. It needs you to believe, I am this anger. I am this pain. But when you observe, you automatically create separation. And what can be observed cannot be you. You are the one who observes. This doesn't mean you'll become a robot without emotions. On the contrary, emotions become more intense, more vivid, because you're no longer resisting them. You allow them to pass through you like music. You're not the music, you're the silence that makes it audible. And when the music passes, the silence remains, untouched, at peace. But there's an even deeper secret that few know, something that will turn everything upside down. The silence that you are isn't personal. It doesn't belong to you, because you as a person is just another sound being observed. Silence is universal. It's the same silence in me and in you. It's the same space of consciousness observing through all eyes, hearing through all ears. The separation between me and you is an illusion created by the story. At the level of silence, we are one. We always have been. Does this sound abstract? Then try it. Look someone in the eyes and ask, who is looking through those eyes? When you go deep enough, you realize it's the same presence, the same silence, just using another body, another story. That's why we can feel empathy. That's why sometimes we look at a stranger and feel an inexplicable connection, because deep down there are no strangers. There's only silence recognizing itself in different forms. The mystics of all traditions reached this conclusion. The Vedas called it Tattvam Asi, thou art that. Jesus said, I and the Father are one. Buddha spoke of anatta, the non-existence of a separate self. These aren't beautiful metaphors, they're precise descriptions of reality. We are the single silence experiencing itself through billions of simultaneous viewpoints. And here's the radical consequence of this. If there's no separate self, then there was never anyone to be hurt. There was never anyone to fail. There was never anyone to die. Because silence isn't born and doesn't die. It witnesses births and deaths, but remains eternal. The body will decay, the mind will dissolve, but the silence that observed all of this, that was never affected by time. Are you afraid of death? It's natural. The character is afraid of ceasing to exist. But you're not the character. You're the eternal consciousness temporarily wearing the character. When the body dies, it's like taking off old clothes. Silence continues, because it never depended on the clothes. This isn't blind faith. It's direct observation. Feel now. The consciousness in you now is the same that was there when you were 5 years old. The body has completely changed, the personality has changed, beliefs have changed. But that which observes all these changes, it remained identical because it's beyond time. So what do we do with this information? How do we live knowing this? The answer is paradoxical. You live exactly as before, but with radical lightness. You continue working, loving, creating, suffering, but something fundamental has changed. You're no longer imprisoned in the story. You're playing the game of life knowing it's a game. And when you know it's a game, you can play with much more passion because there's no real fear of losing. How can you lose something you never really were? This is the ultimate freedom. It's not the freedom to get what you want. It's the freedom to realize that you're already complete, even when you get nothing. It's the freedom to be silence dancing as a person, instead of being a person desperately seeking silence. Listen, right now, there's a sound around you, or there's silence. Doesn't matter. Notice that you're noticing, that noticing is you, not what is noticed, the noticing itself. And this noticing can never be destroyed, can never be improved, can never be lost. It simply is, and you are it. All spiritual seeking, all psychology, all philosophy. In the end, it comes down to this, remembering that you are the silence listening to the world, not the world trying to find silence. The ocean doesn't search for water. It is the water. And you don't search for peace. You are the peace observing turbulence. So take a deep breath and notice that in this exact moment, there's no problem. There are thoughts about problems. There are uncomfortable sensations. But the silence that notices all this, it's in absolute peace, and always has been, and always will be, because this silence is indestructible. It survived all your crises, all your losses, all your symbolic deaths. And it will continue here, observing serenely until the body's last breath. This is the truth that sets you free, not when you understand it intellectually, but when you stop, observe, and recognize, I am this, I always have been this. And in that recognition, something relaxes deeply. The struggle to become someone disappears, and what remains is just life happening through the eternal silence that you always were. If this message touched something deep in you, like this video, leave in the comments which phrase impacted you the most. Subscribe to the channel because we'll continue exploring these truths that transform lives, and share this with someone who needs to remember who they really are, because in the end, sharing this message is silence recognizing itself in another heart, and there's nothing more beautiful than that.